to Keyhole Conversations, folks. We have a special guest with us today, H.B. Berlow, who's just come out with a new novel, SWAN Song. Our viewers would probably love to know how you got the idea for this story. I'd like to know, too. So would you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely, Bunny. I'd be happy to. It was a NaNoWriMo project, and I did want to start getting more involved in writing crime fiction. The thing that I took was from the old school, Raymond Chandler and Dashiell Hammett, and how there were characters that were muddled in terms of their morality. Good guys had some element of being soiled, and bad guys had some charming element to them. The good time girls also had remorseful aspects or were emotional and could be motherly. So it's all about trying to find interesting characters that have a different human aspect than the traditional appearance in traditional crime fiction. I did want to set it in Wichita. I did want to have as local a feel as possible. When you're talking about crime or crime fiction or characters of a different nature, it doesn't matter if it's Chicago, New York, or Los Angeles. It can happen right here. The thing for me was to create an ongoing, moving piece. And by moving, I don't mean emotionally moving, but have a sense of forward progression. The chapters are shorter, and they usually end with a little bit of a cliffhanger, if you will, a burst, some reason to go on to the next chapter. This way it progresses the story forward. My wife is my primary editor and proofreader, and what she likes the most is when there is the continuity and a flow of progression. I find this is easier to do in crime fiction than it would be in traditional literary fiction, because in literary fiction you're developing more of a sense of character and mood. In crime fiction, these characters can be harsh, colorful, and pop at you, and as quickly as possible. We don't like to see, let's say, a hardened criminal doing Hamlet's to be or not to be. We want to see him using certain darker words, if you will, and telling us what he feels and not have any regret about telling us how he feels. So everybody in this piece is honest except for those who lie, which is basically everybody. You can never tell who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. It is that kind of development of character that fascinates me about crime fiction. In doing it as a NaNoWriMo piece, I was forced to write quickly. So this aided in the development of the original plot. Now, of course, the plot back from November of 2007 did change a little bit. The ending did change a little bit, and before my final edit, I was half thinking about putting yet another twist in there, but too many twists would twist the reader's mind and maybe not have them like me as much. So it is all about progression, forward movement, and interesting characters that just blurt out whatever they're thinking. I like that.
Well, I have another question for you. What kind of research did you have to do on this book?
Well, when it came to research, the most important thing that I did was in terms of place and location. One example, I came across an interesting tidbit about Gouda Springs in Kansas, which is halfway in between the Turnpike and Ark City. And I had read that Gouda Springs was a town that at one time had a law in which all the citizens were required to own a handgun. I had a desire to place something near there because it was fascinating. So basically, the research was mostly in terms of locale location. When I said something took place in this section of Wichita, I went to Google Maps, I looked at the maps, I looked at the satellite photos. I wanted to have a sense of grit and feel. In my revising of it, I was driving around town, just in normal daily life, and happened to stop by a location and say, okay, maybe I have to revise that scene because this looks gritty. In terms of what that means to the reader, if you're from Wichita or Kansas, you might pick that up. But for me, it was important because having an exact sense of setting and location made it real for me, which allowed me to make it real in the book.
And who would you say is your favorite character in this book?
Well, I do enjoy the main character, Walt Hardy. Walt Hardy is a former policeman who was kicked out of the Wichita Police Department 5 years ago under questionable circumstances. He had the nickname of Wild West Walt is the kind of guy who would shoot first and ask questions later. And he has a tough, not a mean personality, but a tough personality, as though he's trying to get to the truth like a bullet trying to get to a body. And he has a sense of loyalty as long as it's reciprocated. So he will be your friend, but if you turn on him, he has no warm, fuzzy feeling toward you.
Well, if that character were standing right here beside me, right now, what would he say about the author? Can you put yourself in that character's place and be, what was his name, Wally?
Walt Hardy.
Walt. Okay, can you do that?
I can do that.
I'd love that.
Walt Hardy. Walt would say, you know what, this guy, he understands me. He understands me because he knows what I've been through. He also knows that I'm trying to find the truth, and he's trying to find the truth. So I appreciate that from him. Now, he's a little bit more spineless than I am. I'm tougher. I can take care of myself. I know how to fire weapons. I know how to beat the heck out of people. I know how to get around situations. He seems to be the kind of guy that just sits in his chair and writes and reads about it. So, nice guy, but I tell you something, he could use a little bit more of a backbone.
Very good. We appreciate it, and thank you for coming. Walt, or am I talking to HB right now?
You tell me who you're talking to, and I'll respond accordingly. Don't
All
worry about
right,
that.
Walt. I guess
Thank you,
that's
ma'am.
it for now. This is Keyhole Conversation. We'll see you next time.